light orbs, or in fact a reddish planet, little bitty orb, not Venus, not Mars. Yeah, usually at the 4 o'clock position to the sun when you view from the northern hemisphere. From the southern hemisphere, it's usually at the 11 o'clock position. People are increasingly seeing this. At the same time, Andrea and I will be reviewing all the survival solutions we have presented during our monthly show. Don't panic. You will have time to prepare, but if you have not yet taken steps, you certainly should get busy. This is our point. You have time, but you shouldn't be lollygagging. You shouldn't be, the next video game or vroom vroom, a brand new car, or you have to think about the worst case scenario and what would you do then, and be prepared. But do more than just think about it. Take steps, to be able to feed yourself, etc. We are going to be reviewing how much we've gone through in the last few months in telling you exactly what you should do and where you can find this information on the USAEBN website and in the Zeta Report also. Has Nibiru arrived? Evidence since 2003, when in the opinion of the Zetas, Nibiru did indeed arrive in the inner solar system, are undeniable. When still seen in the night sky, it showed its distinct double helix shoulders from the two dominant moon swirls on either side, all shrouded in red dust. Now, for those of you who are new to this subject, Nibiru is what this traveling rogue planet was called by the ancient Sumerians. And it would come approximately every 3,600 years and make a passage through our solar system. And when it did so, because it is a big magnet and it's larger than the Earth, it's 4 to 5 times the diameter and 23 times the mass per the Zetas. It is the bully magnet, and that and its gravitational force. And when it comes by the Earth, it twists the Earth in the sky because our North Pole wants to go with it or get away from it. And this is a magnetic dance, which is very well described within Zeta Talk. The bottom line, the Earth will twist by 90 degrees, in the opinion of the Zetas. This forthcoming passage, putting the new equator through the Arctic and wrapping around through Antarctica, going down through the Pacific, past the Americas, and up through the Arctic, past Europe and Africa, and radically changing the climate for most of the people on Earth. All of this accompanied by hurricane-force winds, big earthquakes, high tides. Don't be on the coast. So, given that this is the projection, and given that so much talk about, it's the end times, sounds just as dire, should you panic? We're here to tell you you should not, but you should prepare in very sensible ways. But getting back to the imaging of Nibiru, filtered images showing not only Nibiru but the moons and debris and the vast dust cloud accompanying Nibiru were possible using a red plastic insert from an old floppy disk. This filter allows more red spectrum light through rather than merely coloring everything in a red color. Let me expound on that for a moment. This is an iron oxide dust cloud shrouding Nibiru, and it's a tremendous, vast tail, debris, moons that never quite get that far away from Nibiru. They don't go round and around. They trail behind and swirl in a dance with each other. And because this is red iron oxide dust, which, by the way, falls on Earth increasingly, and is what 3,600 years ago turned the rivers of the Nile blood red, when and as the legend tells. And yes, during the passage, there's a heck of a lot of it that falls on Earth. It's a distinct signal that things are very close. So,
Nancy,
yes.
I just want to clarify right there. You're talking about the iron oxide dust. That'd be the red rain, and the dust that would fall from the tail of what NASA had named Planet X, so Nibiru.
Right.
That dust is also what is clouding our vision of it from the Earth through our atmosphere, right, and the refraction that our atmosphere causes, plus that red iron oxide dust. So what a lot of folks are doing out there is using a filter for their cameras or their telescopes that captures only red, not a red filter per se. People are trying to put red filters in front of it, and that's just adding to the more distortion. What you need to do is filter for infrared or red, and that's where the floppy disk, and a lot of folks are catching it, especially in the southern hemisphere because of the way the Earth's tilted this time of year, that a lot more captures are coming from that part of the world. And what's associated with that too is that red dust, is that that's one of the signs that the passage is very close, right?
Exactly. And so the insert from the old floppy disk is something that lets through the red spectrum light, blocks other spectrums, and that's why you can see it. You see, the swirling moons and blah, blah, blah. Orange mylar, also works as that type of filter, letting through the red spectrum. It gives more of an orange color to what you see, and in my view, it's often superior view of Nibiru and its unmistakable moon swirls. Now, the moon swirls will sometimes form like what we call a string of pearls, and when seen from the side, it's beep, 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 beep. There they are, the moons out stringing behind, Nibiru. This all tends to get blown. Nibiru is a little bit to the right of the sun. It tends to get blown to the left and then swirl up above the sun. So these very dramatic moon swirl orbs are seen oftentimes to the left and even above the sun. Now, what is a moon swirl orb? This is where that long tube where they're dancing and swirling with each other turns. Instead of being seen from the side and showing up as a string of pearls, it's seen from the end where the light is bouncing down through the tube like a flashlight, intensifying, not escaping, and it comes out the end like a flashlight, and it's a very bright orb next to the sun, and people say, what is that? So often when they think they're seeing Nibiru itself, it's so shrouded in dust, that's not it. What you're seeing is the end of a moon swirl tube with all the light reflecting out, so that it has various aspects to it, this visibility. So as Nibiru is drawn closer, and right now it's on our side of the sun and coming toward us, we're not seeing the tail from a distance. This string of pearls kind of thing happened early on, in just after 2003 when it had first entered the inner solar system. But rather, we are beginning to see an onslaught of debris in the tail as a storm is upon us. And this is often, space junk is falling, or it's meteor showers, or they just don't even explain it anymore. But we are getting when you look at this mess, coming at us from the direction of the sun, it looks like you're in a blizzard rather than something at a distance where you can pick out distinct characteristics. The second sun is another aspect of visibility. What is that? That happens in the dawn and the dusk. And it happens because the sunlight bounces off the dust cloud and bounces toward the earth. And people see what they think they see the sun rising, and then they say, wait a minute, that's not the sun. The sun is coming up over there. And the same thing with the sunset. It is the angle of bounce off the shrouding dust cloud that shrouds Nibiru that allows that appearance of a sunrise or sunset. People it started after 2003 when people would on occasion see a second sun rising or setting. It's happening more and more. I heard the other day from someone who said they had been looking for 10 years, They were taking this seriously. They'd seen the Earth wobble that we talk about. They've seen all the evidence that something was in our inner solar system, another planetary influence. And this guy said as he was driving home from work, he looked in his rearview mirror, and there it was, 2 suns setting. And he was thrilled to finally get his verification. Reflections on the water are another aspect of Nibiru. People will take photo shots or catch this, in a webcam or whatever. You will see the second sun, but what's more, you catch a second reflection on the water. And I have a couple of examples that I'm going to put on my YouTube of this hour from 2006, 2010, 13, and 15. You see the second sun glowing there, but you also see the reflection. Well, sundogs do not create a reflection on the water. Sundogs are, in fact, something in ice crystals close to the camera. They're not far away. They're close to the cameras. There is no way they can create a reflection on the water across the lake or across the ocean. Now,
and it's also, Nancy,
go ahead.
With the sundogs and the sun halos too, a lot of the folks on social media, and you'll see this online especially, everybody wants to be an expert. So the first thing they say with a double sun or a 2-sun capture that's been not even on a video, it's just a capture with a camera, a lot of folks will say, well, that's a lens flare. Okay, from photography that I know, lens flare is created by 2 lenses in between each other and light creating a new image on the film or a new capture. What you're saying about the sun dogs is that image is created kind of in the same thing, that sun dog or sun halo is closer to the camera, closer to the surface of the Earth than out there, whereas a lot of people out there are saying, well, that's lens flare, or that's a sun dog, or whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, you can't have a reflection of light off of a surface such as glass or a mirror or water from a lens flare or a sundog, which is what you're saying. It's not possible because that's usually within the camera itself or very close to the camera. And these are actually 2 sources of light from out there that we're talking about, not the refractions inside your camera. And that's a lot of the disinformation out there about Nibiru has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And now with social media, it's much easier for those folks out there, what we call trolls, will come after you and say, lens flare, lens flare, lens flare. Well, it's not. It's a reflection of a light source. So when there's 2 sources of light and 2 reflections, it's easy to prove. But some people don't take it that way, and they're too busy trying to be right.
Yeah, an excellent way to get educated is to go to the poleshiftning.com and take a look at the Planet X Photos blog, where it tells you what you should be looking for to eliminate lens flares. For instance, if you have a video, one thing to do is to move the video around. A lens flare will move around with a camera. Something that's out there near the sun will not. And it goes through, or putting your finger up, to block the sun, lens flares will go away, and some real object, that is the moon swirls or possibly Nibiru itself, will not. And it's very educational. I recommend anyone, wanting to take a look to go check that out, and it's right
another
there
way
up
too,
top.
if I'm sorry, but I was going to say another way to look at this would be through welding goggles. Have you ever tried that or heard about that? Like welding goggles or welding
lens.
plate? Yes,
they tend to take away the glare of the sun. If you have it too strong, if your welder's lens are too strong, you can barely see the sun, and you've eliminated everything. So, but I think that's covered in that blog also as to what kind of things should be done. But Mylar works great. Not everybody has an old floppy disk, but you can get Mylar at a drafting store.
Mylar.
Yeah, orange Mylar, right.
Okay.
Now, recently we had a second son, which I featured in my newsletter. I call it Brilliant Brazil. It was so clear. It wasn't just a glow like sun, like a setting sun off to the left. Where people in the southern hemisphere see it, because it's opposite the northern hemisphere. Down there, they're standing on their head. They got their little feet glued to the globe, and they're standing upside down, so they see things, and kind of opposite we do in the northern hemisphere. This capture was so good, you could see an orb in the center of that glow, and that was Nibiru, with bouncing all the light off, it's shrouding dust cloud. There's also a webcam in Italy, also France. I've also seen this capture someplace off the east coast of the United States. But there's a Nibiru Daily blog at thepoleshifting.com where Polly, who lives in Denmark, religiously goes in and takes a capture at sundown, and you can see a little pink spot, about at the 4 o'clock position to the sun, and she expands that so you can see it better. You can see the double helix, the shoulder pads of these two major moons. It is in there. It shows up every day. There isn't a cloud cover there. There's this wispy cloud stuff that you see on the horizon that looks kind of grayish, but it's really essentially a non-cloudy position there, looking out across the Mediterranean, and it's very visible for about a year now. That's been showing up because it keeps coming closer. Is it time to panic? Not in the opinion of the Zetas, who laid out its path in the night sky in 2000, 2001, 2002, and then when it arrived in 2003, and it arrived right where they predicted in 2003. I saw that. I was coming home from work, a meeting at 8:30, and I stopped, walked out into a cornfield where there was no light pollution, and looked in the direction where it was supposed to become visible, and I saw this pulsing reddish mass, which is not any of the known stars or star systems out there, and I was so excited, and anyway, people were reporting this from all over the world, and I have all those comments captured and posted on my website. The Zetas laid out the timeline and the sequence of events to occur before its passage. Why should you care about what they say? Because they were right about its arrival, and they nailed the date and the spot in the sky, the X and Y, almost so precisely. NASA is not that precise about anything that it predicts, planetary movements. So when they tell you what's going to be happening sequentially before the passage, take them seriously, because they have a track record of success, and it's not just this 2003 arrival. They've been right about so many things. You shouldn't panic, but you should get busy. As Jesus said, none shall know the date of his return, and the Zetas have confirmed that the date of their predicted passage of Nibiru past the Earth is not to be known. Why is this? For the Zetas, the Earth is our schoolhouse, our spiritual schoolhouse, and the chaos to come is one of our opportunities to care for others and to grow spiritually. It's the reason we have cancer and tornadoes and droughts and starvation. We have opportunities to help each other or be selfish. So that it's a spiritual schoolhouse, and coming out of an incarnation, and we have many hundreds and thousands of incarnations, you are stronger. Your soul is more massive and wise, and eventually you graduate to bigger and better things and get to go around the universe and etc. Certainly you will not be taken by surprise. The fact that mankind is alive and flourishing on Earth is testament that humanity has survived cataclysms in the past and will survive in the future. Think about that. If we have this happening every 3,600 years, and there we go way back through time, clearly we don't get wiped out. Sometimes bad things happen, like the mammoth, the woolly mammoth is no longer with us. That's because up in Siberia we had a pole shift. It was grasslands, and whoosh, they got pushed up into the polar circle and all froze to death. So that's why they find the woolly mammoth skeletons with green grass and buttercups in their stomachs, way up there on Wrangel Island in the polar circle, where there is certainly no green grass and buttercups. Crustal shifts have happened. This has been documented geologically, and this is something that we've talked about on this show too, USAEBN. We here at USAEBN on the Zeta Report Hour have featured survival steps for the populace to take. None of this requires funds. The poor can take these steps as readily as the wealthy. These shows are available as podcasts on USAEBN and available on YouTube on the Zeta Report channel. So, in keeping with the Zeta Talk philosophy, their would-be survivors should assume that there are no supplies available to them. I mean, you can't go shopping. You know, if you had anything tucked away, it's disappeared, it's been stolen from you, or you've eaten it up already or something. Meals ready to eat. No, there are no warehouses full of rice and beans, even though that sounds like a good idea. The best idea is to be prepared to feed yourself, assuming, like naked and afraid, you got nothing. So in that theory, before I get back to how much time do I have and what kind of things are sequentially going to happen, perhaps I should touch base on that. The Zetas have talked about what they call a 10 of 10. They were asked, where are we? We're 7 of 10, 10 of 10 being the pole shift. 7 of 10 is large plate movements in which they said the Sunda plate in Indonesia would sink approximately 80 feet, and pretty much that has happened to Jakarta, etc., and those areas. They said that South America would tilt and roll left like a big ice cream cone falling on its side, and in doing so would tend to push down the Caribbean plate. That is in the process of happening, but it hasn't completed. They said that Africa would roll like a big ice cream cone falling to the right and separate from Gibraltar by 125 miles and the Sinai by 50. That is started but have barely proceeded. You don't hear about the Sinai having a 50-mile gap, between the Sinai and Egypt. So we've got a ways to go on the 7 of 10. The 8 of 10 is more visibility, a lot more, sloshing oceans, the seasons blending into each other. Some of that has started. So this is my point to say we are not having the pole shift tomorrow. In addition, drop dead is the last weeks, which are 7.3 weeks long. This encompasses 3 days of darkness in which the North Pole absolutely points away from the sun, and a severe wobble back and forth, to the degree that I wouldn't want to be along the Atlantic or Pacific, 200-foot tidal waves, and then gradual rotation slowing to a stop, which, yes, has happened in the past and is in mythology and the like. Then we have the passage with the pole shift, and then everything returns to normal pretty quickly. 7.3 weeks. So if we're not having 3 days of darkness, you've got that at least. But I'm telling you, if Africa hasn't rolled and blah, 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 you've got a lot more than that. You have time, but here's what you should put into practice. One of, I think, our best shows was on January 4th of this year, Vitamins in Nature. I talked about scurvy, beriberi, pellagra, and rickets are caused by deficiencies of vitamins that can be found in nature, easily found in nature. You're talking about weeds and eating bugs, which are high in B vitamins, and weeds are high in C and etc., foliate. B vitamin B6, which causes, neurological damage, to infants. All you have to do is eat some weeds. That's foliate. You don't have to have a vitamin bottle. If you run out of vitamin pills and fresh fruits and vegetables, meat and dairy are no longer available in the stores due to these shortages. Stores are bare. Where to find them in nature? Bugs and weeds. High in B vitamins. Weeds have vitamin C. The Eskimos get along without scurvy, and they don't get vitamin pills. That's just throughout history they haven't. Why? Because they eat seal meat and seal skin raw. And animals have vitamin C. Only man, and I think one other variety of ape and some bats on Earth, do not manufacture their own vitamin C. So you should go through this. Take notes. January 4th, USA EBN has it available, and it's on the Zeta Report also.
Right, and I put a link on the chat room to the YouTube for that. If you want to look, all of our episodes are on Nancy's YouTube channel. You can look up Nancy Leader on YouTube, Zeta Report look up, or we do have a media link on zetatalk.com and Pollsters.
Right. So we did a survival tip overview last September 7th, 2015. And this was like at the naked and afraid level. You don't have any clothing. You have nothing, right? What do you need to survive? And civilization, has been lost. The grid is down. The cupboards are bare. You want to be able to start a fire. How do you do that? With a flint, clean drinking water. How do you boil water to get a distillation process going? Or desalination if you're along the coastlines. Eating bugs and worms, where do you find them? Earthworms, for instance, are 82% protein, and the omega-3 is their essential oil. And let me tell you, the herd does not stampede. If you're growing them in your garden trash, there they are. And supper is a handful away. Fish hooks, how they're so cheap, and so you go to the store and you buy a box of a few thousand of these. Think what life would be like if you didn't have a fish hook. If you have fish hook and fish line, you don't need a pole. You just have something you're going to tuck in your pocket. Worried about predators like big bears? Are you in Alaska or wherever? Oh dear. Well, listen, eat them. Bear meat is edible, and it makes a good barbecue. You can eat rats and squirrels. They did during the Civil War in the U.S. Squirrels were a favorite of the soldiers stuck out in the woods. You can eat weeds for vitamins, mushrooms, if you know which are safe to eat. Seaweed and algae, good food. And if you live along the coast, people walk along and if the seaweed or the algae has been washed in, it's gathered and eaten. In Japan, they wrap their sushi in seaweed. Duckweed, that light green, scummy-looking stuff on ponds, is extremely nutritious. As a matter of fact, it has a protein. It's one of these plants that could almost be called, you don't need anything else, just eat the duckweed. And it's certainly, people are now gathering it, drying it, making a powder out of it, and selling it, high-protein duckweed. Kudzu. In the southeast of the United States, kudzu was considered a weed, but let me tell you, that's a pea plant. You can eat the tubers that are underground. You can eat the leaves. You can feed the leaves to your cattle and get the milk. It's an edible plant, and it's just, in my mind, went from being a curse, covering houses and cars and roads and climbing up over trees, to being a salvation to people in the southeast United States. Temporary tents, how do you erect them? You can do that with a tarp, for instance. A rope and a tarp will give you a tent. You're out of the rain. Tiny houses versus big houses. It's kind of a fad thing lately, how often you see tiny houses in the news. And those who have bamboo available, let me tell you, that's another gift. You can eat the bamboo and the tender sprouts, but bamboo, you can build multi-story buildings out of this. It is very durable. Soak it in water, bend it, and make furniture, etc. Berming homes. At least some of your sides where the windy side, so the wind comes up and over and doesn't catch on things and rip off your roof or rip off your window covers, berming and helps with insulation. If you live in an entirely bermed home, you might have to worry about increased threat from radon gas, but use berming as a tool. Hand tools. You can find these at yard sales, or you can even order them off the internet. Think of electricity as gone. There's hand tools that are drills and saws and hammers and blah, blah, blah. Houseboat with various flotation devices. Houseboats is a wonderful concept, especially in those areas that are going to be increasingly flooded. You can fish. Put some tomato plants in a pot, on your deck. Watch that movie Waterworld. Get some ideas along those lines. And if you don't like your neighbors, you move on down the coast. Growing Power, which is a company in the inner city of Milwaukee, does it all right. How to start gardens in urban areas. Very poor. He brings in a little soil. He has got earthworms. He's recycling, creating soil, because earthworms will create their own fertilizer in their little egg sacs, the best fertilizer. And he's doing it all right. And this guy has become famous for Chicago and various other cities, getting inner city areas to grow their own produce. Never mind rioting, and starving to death. You don't have to do any of that. And where you have worms and bugs, you can have chickens, and now you got eggs and chicken meat. Okay.
Right.
So that is September 7th, 2015, a survival overview. Then we jump to April 6th of 2015. It was one of our earlier shows, Survival Mindset. What does this mean? Sharing versus hoarding. The Great Depression era hobo camps are an example. The communes of the 60s is an example. Potluck suppers or communal soup pot. Clothing racks. Everyone contributes. Volunteering is best. Rather than someone barking orders, you let people volunteer what they want to do because usually they have a good idea what they could be good at. They can see what needs to be done, and everybody's upbeat. Disability is an attitude, not an affliction. Just look at, and in there I featured all these little dogs that have missing legs, and they don't know. They're chasing the ball, walking around with 2 front legs or 2 rear legs, and they learned how to get along. And as far as they're concerned, life is great. Have an action plan. This is essential for thwarting depression. In other words, make a list where there's a task for everyone. And get people, if people are assaulted, if there's like big earthquakes and high winds and everything gets blown around and my, now what? The first urge is to either fight or flight. It's a natural urge. So that everyone's either going to want to run away or get into fist fights with each other. But if you have an action plan, you turn that energy into action. Okay, let's go collect the dishes that aren't broken, and how about getting those mattresses under a tarp so that we don't get soaked by the rain, and everybody gets busy. Natural leaders will emerge, and women and children will see solutions, frankly, more readily than men, because it's their nature. Children see with brand new eyes. They're not told, how to think. They're not brainwashed by society. And women are used to getting along with whatever, but men want to be in charge, and they're more likely to be overwhelmed by all of this. So give your guys an action plan and let the women and children decide what needs to be done. If PTSD hits, make homemade straitjackets. That's real easy to do. You take a dress shirt, put it on backwards, and wrap the cuffs around toward the back, button up the back, and now you have a straitjacket. And I joked and I said it can go as far as if you have enough people like this, just make everybody run around without pants on so you don't have to help them potty. I mean, I'm serious. Think very practical. Okay. Yeah. A community is essential to blocking gang activity. All right, so that is having the right mindset, August 6th, 2015. on USA EBN podcasts and also on the Zeta Report as a YouTube. March 2nd, 2015, off-grid energy options. That was a good one. Assume that the grid is going to be down. March 2nd, 2015, we talked about direct current versus alternating current. Reversed alternators in the alternators in cars and electric tools like a drill and the like, you can use those because in there you have a magnet, whirling around the carbon wire. The way it's designed is that the electricity goes one way and causes motion, the alternator, and now you have the lawnmower running or the drill turning or the wheels in the car, are wanting to turn, or the pistons up and down, but you can reverse that. So there's lots of places to go and look at diagrams and the like, USA EBN podcast and also the YouTube, where this has been done by people, and it's they've diagrammed it. You can go every car has an alternator.
Right.
Every electric drill has an alternator. Now you can use weird parts, from anything, wooden windmill flaps or something from spare metal laying around, blown around. You can make a windmill out of a lawnmower, or there's the Nebraska windmill, which is at ground level. It's like
horizontal.
It's horizontal, and it goes into a pit and comes up above the pit. Very easy to maintain. You don't have to climb up, and if there's windstorms and the like. So also steam engines, how they work, what the dangers are. There's a bike gen. This is really primitive. Let's say you just got to turn the lights on. You can hook up your bike, take the wheels off, and generate electricity. And now you've got, because after all, the headlights in the cars and trucks, they don't break very readily. And so you can turn on the lights, to get everybody's mood up temporarily. Wood gas and methane. Wood gas is where, and actually I have the diagrams from somebody who was in Finland, and he got this old car from World War II that had a wood gas generator. You put wood chips in, and they're burning, and they create a gas. And yes, it doesn't reach 80, 90 miles an hour down the road, but it reached 50. And I'm to understand that not only Finland, but Western Australia did that during World War II also. They didn't have gasoline. They were out, and they used wood gas. Solar panels. They work even on cloudy days. And if your light bulbs are gone, and you say, now what? I've got electricity, but I have no light bulbs. Guess what? The streets of London were as bright as day a little over 100 years ago from carbon arc lamps. And that's nothing more complicated than taking the lead inserts from pencils and putting them close enough together and running a direct current through there. I had somebody on the West Coast try this. I said, am I right that you could use the inserts from pencils to create a carbon arc light? It is full spectrum, as light as day, and yes, you should put your sunglasses on to protect your cataracts, and from cataracts or skin cancer and the like. You treat it like sunlight. You get a little bit of that, but not too much. Okay, that was March 2nd, 2015. And boy, the plants, if you have an indoor garden, if you have hydroponics.
Great grow light. Really good.
That's right. Yeah. Let me tell you that you can create your own hydroponic solution. Check that on the Zeta Talk website. Type that in. Worm bed solution for hydroponics. We had this done in the basement. We watered our worm beds, and I did a 2-way or 3-way comparison. This is store-bought hydroponic solution. This is from the worm beds, and this is from the fish tanks, running the water past the roots. And I counted leaves and blossoms and how many beans and such and such, and it was comparable. You can create your own hydroponic solution. I learned from a guy in Perth, Australia, that had these big worm beds raised and then watered them and collected the brown drainage that came out. He said this is the best nutrient solution you can get, and he sold these worm beds to the flower gardens in Indonesia, and we tested it out, and let me tell you, you won't learn that anywhere else, but if you go into my websites and look for this information, it's there, all, and the pictures and everything. Okay, December 7th, 2015, last year, houseboats, another favorite subject of mine. Be a modern-day Noah. The theory of buoyancy is covered. Plastic bottles and inner tubes, you know how they can be used. Bamboo and lightweight wood. Homemade plans available at buildahouseboat.com. And the desperation of people that are suddenly set afloat in nothing more than a rowboat, like the Rohingyas that are, over near Bangladesh, and nobody wants them, and they're on the. It's so sad. Houseboat community examples, mangrove island examples. Someone did this down near Central America. Created a houseboat with plastic bottles as flotation devices, and he's got, it looks like he's built an island. He's got so much vegetation, and these mangroves do put down roots, and so he is beginning to create his own mangrove island. Operation Atlantis as an example. Junk houseboats, literally made from junk. Freedom Ship for the Wealthy is another example. Waterworld lessons, sinking land history, because this kind of thing has happened in the past. Duckweed and seaweed are available to houseboats. Solar, wind, and water power are available to houseboats. Noah's boat, what was that all about? Well, we got a lot of documentation from the Colbrin, and I believe in that December 7th, 2015 episode, I read some of that. And Finnegan Fine's story, which is my little story that I wrote up about a houseboat moving around the southeast United States after the pole shift. This is a theoretical situation, future, and how Finnegan got along. It was a fun story to write. March 7th, 2016, Katrina Revisited. This is floods. The dangers in floodwaters, such as the Red River floods in North Dakota, Katrina in New Orleans, the Sandy devastation in New York City and New Jersey, and lingering floodwaters in Indonesia. Polluted and infection-laden waters. Electrocution is a worry. Lack of electricity. Really, you can't. Electricity and water do not get along well. Fires that cannot be extinguished when the pumps don't work, and snakes and crocs as neighbors. So it's like, okay, the floodwaters, oh dear, water, it's a lot more than that. And this March 7th, 2016 episode covers all of that. Okay, lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan. We touched on that on February 1st, 2016. Lead poisoning in Flint, Michigan. Earthquakes and volcanic dust can bring lead into our drinking water, and this will increasingly become a problem. Learn to distill your drinking water and chelate heavy metals away via diets high in parsley, cilantro, and other veggies. That's touched on February 1st of this year. Now, the ancient Sumerians, as I mentioned, depicted Nibiru throughout history, but those who survived its prior passages, most famous and undeniable of the depictions are ancient Sumerian drawings showing Nibiru as yet another planet in the known solar system. The ancient Sumerians knew about Pluto. They had all these planets laid out, and they said, and there's Nibiru. They knew about Pluto before modern man did in the 1930s or so, because they got this information from the inhabitants of Nibiru, and yes, it is an inhabited planet. The famous winged globe, which is an ancient Sumerian drawing. Here's the globe with big wings. Guess what? It showed up on Soho in 2009, and this is NASA's view of the sun, etc. And there it was. something with wings on either side, and we're not talking about a passing planet like Mercury or Venus. It was not there, boop, it was there, boop, it was gone, because they try to airbrush this out. And I thought, oh, for heaven's sakes, it looks just like the winged globe of the ancient Sumerians. Azoth is an example. This is, in the Middle Ages, there was images of Azoth, which was an alchemical alchemy dragon kind of creature, but it clearly shows in some of these drawings what they call the planet of the crossing, by which Nibiru is also known, the planet of the crossing, meaning it passes by. Is shown disorienting the sun and the moon during its passage. Well, our moon is already not in the right place. Azoth was considered change, alchemy, and certainly the passage of Nibiru would be considered that, leaving the earth changed in its path. Nuwa is a Chinese legend. The legend of Nuwa depicts a magnetic battle where the north and south poles of Earth moved to new locations. And I quote from the Nuwa legend. The Chinese legend tells how the world was swept by a great flood, and only Fu Zi and his sister Nuwa survived. There was a quarrel between the two of the more powerful gods, and they decided to settle it with a fight. When the water god Gong Gong saw that he was losing, he smashed his head against Mount Buzwa, a pillar holding up the sky. The pillar collapsed and caused the sky to tilt toward the northwest and the earth to shift to the southeast. This caused great floods and suffering to the people. Nuwa was unable to fully correct the tilted sky. And when I dealt with this legend within Zeta Talk in one of my newsletters, I point out, the Zetas point out, how this exactly talks about where they felt from a view from China, that the sky moved to the northwest, and this was because the whole earth moved to the southeast. Yep, crustal shift. And in accordance with the Zeta's description of past crustal shifts. November 2nd, 2015, on USAEBN podcast and the Zeta Talk YouTubes. We went through climate change impact, Mexico superstorm, permafrost melting, global warming refuted because it's not warmer air that's causing all this. The Earth wobble has an influence, shifting back and forth, causing the tides. The jet stream torque, sea lions starving, starfish dissolving, bark beetle migrations, crop shortages, drought and deluge, and the tornado increase. Also, an albino increase, deformed frogs, Morgellons showing up increasingly due to depressed immune systems, bee colony collapse, pithoviruses. What does that mean? We're discovering things up in the Arctic Circle. Fish and bird deaths, Saigai antelope deaths, from methane poisoning, by the way. Sleepy Hollow, where the poor people need to move to because that's methane coming out of where it's splitting apart over there, and the Bighorn Mountain crevasse. So all of this is detailed on November 2nd, 2015. Things that are happening around the globe, and whatever explanation you're getting in the press, that's not what's
wrong.
No, if you want something that makes sense and fits in with the earth wobble, etc., and the plates and the increased earthquakes and the methane gas coming out more and more and blah, 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 November 2nd, 2015. October 4th, 2015. This is Zeta Advice going through the 7 steps exercise to examine the safety of your current location. This is, of course, in the opinion of the Zetas, who have given a prediction on how a crustal shift during the passage of Nibiru would affect the existing geography. Nancy walks through these 7 steps, that's me, Nancy, for 6 different locations to show how it's done, how you go in and follow these 7 steps, And this is on my website. It's also on poleshiftning.com as one of the leading things that they recommend. Right in the center of the page for people to do. Don't panic, but go through these 7 steps, and it will tell you what the deal is, how your climate is going to change. Are you high enough elevation that you're out of the tidal waves that are going to roll in from the oceans and the like? And what will your target climate be? Meaning, if you're going to be tropical, you know, you may as well get rid of your snowsuit, or vice versa. You know, so what should you do? These 6 different locations were Nairobi, Kenya, Mumbai, India, the Northwest Territories of Canada, Guadalajara, Mexico, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and Moscow in Russia, as examples, you know, so that you can see how it's done, you know, and then once you're warmed up like that, go in and go through the 7 steps for your location. And that's my presentation for today, Andre, and we got through it with five or more minutes to go.
I tried to keep up with you on the links on the chat room, but all of these subjects and topics about the crustal pole shift and the passage of Nibiru, we do pretty much have the references that you're putting down. The dates are references to the YouTube and the shows that we've done in the past year and a couple of months. And the reason why USA Emergency Broadcasting Network and Nancy and her team at zetatalk.com and poleshift.ning.com are together on this subject is not to send out the fear. We're not in this to scare anybody. We're not in this to make any money, really. It's not even popular, to tell you the truth, because what you're seeing on the television is not reflecting what's actually going on in the skies and what's not actually going on in the climate. So we're kind of trying to bridge that gap and provide you with information about preparedness. And when you see these signs, here's what to do when when these last weeks approach. Get away from the coast, get away from volcanoes, get away from nuclear power plants, and find a way to hunker down. We covered these in a lot of the episodes that we've done, and the reason why, like I said, is to get the message out to be prepared. And you are your own first responder when it comes to any type of natural disaster or man-made disaster. You are your own first responder, and if you have the knowledge, you can carry that through. The internet may be gone or the electricity may be gone, but if you have that knowledge of what to do when it goes down, to be that leader and to be in that mindset that you want to help others instead of just looting stores, that's where we want to. That's kind of what we're driving for here. With maybe I got a little wordy on that one, Nancy, but I think that's the gist of what we're trying to do.
It's very, very well stated, and the main thing is, from what I gather, because it's increasingly visible, and I get email, and people are in absolute panic. Oh my gosh, I saw it. It's real, And then they say, well, what do I do? Well, what do you do is something I've been preaching at them forever, and think, naked and afraid, and go through all this stuff, where you get your vitamins from, how you make electricity, how you can, create simple shelters and flotation devices so you have a houseboat, and et cetera, and fish hooks and fish line, and you're floating on a platform, and life could be worse. So, and it can be fun. And this is something else I like to point out. Remember, you go into work now and you punch the time clock and you're making lunch buckets or tire rims or whatever. And after 8 hours you go home and that's your life. Your contribution to mankind is to grind out something in a factory or whatever, or, type away as the data processing. So your life is going to be a lot more interesting. You get to be the boss of yourself. And for children, school is out. They hate sitting in desks and listening to some boring history lecture. And now they don't have to do that. They get to, stride along with their parents and, let's do this and let's do that. And it's hands up. Kids love that. They want to go with their parents or with the adults and roll up their sleeves and be involved. They sense whatever the adults are doing is important. It's not just some boring lecture. So in fact, that you're going to be healthier. Diabetes disappears if you lose that flab. This is a fact. Type 2 diabetes goes away if you lose the flab. And I know that for a fact. And also heart disease lessons. During the Great Depression, when people were semi-starving, the heart disease incidence went way down. So you're going to be healthier. You're going to be fit. You don't have to go to the gym for this either. And exercise helps counter depression. So plus, life is going to get a lot more interesting. And if you want to believe the Zetas, and they say we're going to become galactic citizens. You're going to be introduced to, intelligent life from elsewhere, and perhaps even invited over to their high-tech cities, for what might constitute lunch.
Right?
Yeah,
Stop in for some pizza.
of some sort, and so there's all this possibility, and it's not all. Now, some people are going to be kind of out of luck. If you need kidney dialysis or whatever, it's going to be like life was 100 years ago. If you get certain illnesses or certain problems, you move on to your next incarnation. The whole point should be nobody should have pain. Death is not the end, and if you look upon it that way, it's not saving every life and trying to wring every last minute out of this incarnation, but, spiritual growth, learning to help others, and looking forward to what the future promises.
Right. And just keep your eye on the sky too. If you don't believe if you don't believe what you're seeing on the news, the mass market news, I like to call it, because it is a business, and they are getting paid by advertisers to do certain things. And let's just be honest about that. If you want to research it more, pulseshift.ning.com, Planet X captures are on there. Moon Watcher at large is great to see the way the moon is actually shifting. But the moon's not shifting. We're wobbling. So that's why the moon's out of place or rotating. The moon doesn't rotate or spin. We do. Research everything before you believe anything. And a good place to start is pulseshift.ning.com. Another great place to start is look at the sky. Look around you. Notice some things. For instance, in Wisconsin, it was 67 degrees in the morning. Or in the afternoon, and in the morning it was snowing and raining, and then at night it was 28 degrees again. That's the wobble. That's what we're dealing with. It's climate change on a global scale, and the truth is out there. It is.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
X-Files drop there.
Yeah. Measure where the sun comes up and sets, and check where it's supposed to be. Verse exact east and west. It's too far to the south and northeast, too far to the southwest, that type of thing. What would cause that? Because the earth is wobbling, and it's something you do not hear in the news. People in cities don't think of that because they don't see the sky. They got too much light pollution.